Well, we've talked a lot about the client side of things. What about the managing the art side too, or the artists, and maybe some ideas of I'm sure you've had tons of artists approach you to be in your galleries, and you've probably seen the gamut as far as that goes. What any thoughts or tips or advice from that perspective of an artist is nervous and they want to approach a gallery, and how would you kind of how have you seen that successful, maybe not so successful?
Totally. I gave a presentation once at a university, and it was at the art department, and I started out just for fun and like throw a little comedy in it. I started out like, if any of you want to be successful, and it was specifically about being in a gallery, and it was to quit the art department and go into business. And I see all the teachers are like, "Oh my God, stop it!" But then small part of me that is very real and true. That a lot of times, like, an artist will get caught up in the art, but the sell of themselves and selling their art and that believability and that to approach it as a true business is huge.
Yes.
You know, too, that's like, hey, the email that you sent out, there's like so many grammar issues. I'll get images that like I can't even open the file, and I'm like, I don't even know what file that is. How'd you do that? Or like the websites aren't clean, or there is no website, or like they'll send me a link to an Instagram page that also has posts about their trip to Moab with their wife and friends. And I mean, it's all so like messy that it's like, you really need to know that like no gallery wants to take on a mess or someone that's unsure of themselves, or, hey, here's my art. And if you don't like that though, here's like 5 other styles that I also do. And on a weekly basis, I have at least 10 artists that come to the galleries. Either they'll walk in, or they'll email, or they'll phone call in. And I've seen so many different pitches. And if I could say for any artist that's like, hey, how do I get into a gallery? My honest opinion is to create a website that is clean, and it has who you are and what you're about. And I have an honest, true belief that any phenomenal artist can paint anything. If they're an artist, they truly can do anything. And that is so hard for artists to say, okay, this is who I am, and this is what I'm about, and this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm extra good at, and just surrender to it. So many artists, I'll hear them say, I don't want to be pigeonholed. I don't want to, I can have, I'm so good at different things. I want to just, but for galleries, like, we can't take in an artist that has 10 different styles. Right. It's one style, one thing, and to be known for that one. And the greatest artists today, like, they really could paint anything, but you know them for that. The thing, yes. Yeah. And so to keep it clean, keep an email that's professional. I love when an artist will write and actually make it a little bit more personalized. Say, hey, I've been into your gallery and I really like this, and I really feel like I could be a good artist for you. But what's funny is that they don't know I own 5 of the galleries. So when I get the same copy pasted one, it's just really funny. Oh yeah. I'm like, oh, that's hilarious. Well, it shows they haven't done actual research, right? Yeah. And so they're missing out on some, being genuine. And yes. And it's like, okay, do you really want to show? Do you really want to make? Are you just in it for yourself? Or do you actually want to share what you do, not just with the gallery and to help the gallery and to make sales, but the people that connect with your art, which that's a huge part of it. It's like being selfless in the act of creating is a huge part, but also at the same time being, that's just a weird way, being arrogant enough to really like be prideful enough to say, this is what I'm about, and shout it from the rooftops, and like, this is who I am, and with humility and pride, but like, that's just what you're, it's there's so many different ways. And then for an artist that's like, okay, I'm going to create this email, I'm going to send it out, always follow it up with a phone call, always, because the artists that do the phone call, if I'm just reading something and then seeing a picture,
Mm-hmm.
I honestly would say, this is a bold statement, I don't think there's one artist that I carry out of all 5 galleries that I carry because of their art. It is because of their art and who they are.
Mm-hmm.
I stamp that actually.
Yeah, and so what are the kind of those traits that you would say that they are as a person that maybe are most important to you? Is there anything you can identify? I know it's kind of maybe hard, but
yeah.
Some what reading between the lines, what I'm understanding is they kind of have a sense of the business sense of what an artist is too.
Yeah.
That they have kind of a brand identity, right?
Mm-hmm.
They treat things in a professional way. There's some sense of organization, so you know that there'll be some consistency,
mm-hmm.
right? What other things would you say that kind of go along with that?
You know, connecting with those artists, you know, and like all of that should be figured out 100%. And then there's a book, How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Mm-hmm.
Every one of my sales staff, that's the first thing that they're given.
Mm-hmm.
And every artist should read that.
It's a modern classic, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
And for a reason.
Yeah.
And recently, you know, I read articles about how it was, you know, they've gone through scientifically now to kind of prove, hey, he was right Carnegie was right all along with this stuff.
Yeah.
Not just anecdotal, you know, that it has, you know, research behind it now.
Yeah, I love that. And that, the connection, talking, we talked earlier about like not sounding needy,
mm-hmm.
not sounding like in desperation. If the gallery feels that desperation, like they may not know what they're actually feeling and sensing, but what really is happening is they don't want to take on baggage.
Mm-hmm.
And whether or not a person either knows that or not, it's like just humanity can feel that.
Mm-hmm.
And you can sense it in an email and how things are written, phone calls, and everybody wants to like deal with people that are sound and
so the idea of the crazed artist, genius, or whatever is not really what you're looking for. Right?
Yeah.
It's kind of a little bit of a myth, I would say.
Yeah. I would say every artist that I carry, if you were to pick up the phone and call any of them, like every single one of them, it's like family to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like when they chat with me, it's not always about the art right away. It's about like, how are you? How's the family? How's the staff?
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I know that this one employee was having a hard time. How are they doing?
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're picking up the phone call and just to touch base, and they don't even talk about their art.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they just talk about like, how are we doing? And just like they're a provider for the gallery and bringing us art, we're a provider for them, and that we're selling for them and they're making their mortgage payment, they're able to put food on the table. It's just the same way that we're able to,
mm-hmm.
because of the art that comes. And so there's this marriage that happens with an artist and a gallery that really needs to be a connection of people that like we want to work with.
Yeah.
And just like a person you want to hang out with. Like
yeah.
I
think that's so important. It's like such a long-term relationship. It is like a marriage in a lot of ways, right?
Yeah.
So if you want to be successful in a gallery, it's not going to be like a year or 6 months relationship. We're talking, like you say, at least a decade or longer, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I found personally, is that it's through that long relationship that you gain people that come back over time, and you really build up kind of a base of names. So when you do a show, that you get a lot of people just coming and buying, almost before the show opens, kind of thing, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that's never going to happen if you don't have that kind of level of consistency and some of those things you're talking about, right?
Yeah. I'll mention a couple tiny little things that if there is a new artist that we take on, like there's one that I'm going to kind of.
So would you consider that, like, do you do a trial period, or, I mean, in your mind, it may not be called that or whatever, but do you think of it in those terms, or do you have like, oh, we'll rotate one new artist in every 6 months or something like that, or is there kind of a way you do that, or?
For me, I don't feel like there's a trial period. It's like, hey, this is going to work or not.
Yeah.
Is how, and I feel like if I went in with 1 foot, kind of like wondering how it was, the commitment level wouldn't be there.
Mm-hmm.
For me too, if my staff saw that I wasn't fully committed, that would be a problem to where they wouldn't be able to sell it. But like when I do bring on new artists, it's like shout it from the rooftops, super stoked, send out to all the clients.
Yeah.
And if we're going to do it, that email out, blast out, that information out may not result in a sale right now, but it may in 7 months when that person comes in now to see that artist. You know?
Sure.
And so for me, it's 100% like, yeah, let's do this.
Yeah.
I definitely let them know, like, hey, here's what's like kind of expected, and this is what we should be selling of the work,
mm-hmm.
which gives them an idea of like, okay, this is what you probably need to be producing. Problems that I find right away is sometimes an artist will get the work in and they're like so relieved and stoked that the art is there that they then are like, they want to sit back and like, okay, let's see if it's going to sell. But they need to start painting immediately to keep feeding the gallery, because a lot of times what will happen is an artist will come in, they'll sell a bunch of stuff, and then all of a sudden they don't have a wall anymore because everything's sold, and they're like, oh, I got to get on it.
Right.
And so that constant feeding the gallery, or
that production, they need to be productive, right?
Yeah. Or it'll sell and they're so stoked and maybe got some money that they don't feel like they need to be creating the same thing. And then all of a sudden, this artist that did these incredible landscapes painted a cowboy. And I'm like, I don't know how we're going to sell that.
Right.
Yeah. And so you got to stick with what you do and be feeding, and then letting the gallery know, hey, this has come down the pipeline, because the guy that came in yesterday may have needed and wanted something just like that they're painting. And so they're constantly be feeding it. Another thing for us is like it's really important that there's continuity in the framing, so that when you have a gallery and a gallery wall, you don't have a wall of their art hung where there's 8 different frames. So that's an immediate for us. It needs to be super clean. You have to have a system of it.
Yeah.
It can't be a frame from this gallery or that
Yes,
frame
right.
shop, or like, hey, it was that painting that it just looked really good in, but there's never going to be another painting in that same frame. It just creates problems, because when we go to sell it, people are like, oh, I like that frame, or I like that frame, or the frame is really just ugly. And
Right.
Or if it was a recycled frame, we get, that'll happen a lot at the beginning.
Right.
And so
something that's got a lot of dings on it.
Mm-hmm. So it just needs to be really like programmed, systematized, and
Yes.
this is what it is. This is how you do that.